Wow, I can't hear anything.
You're about to lose $40,000 for your car accident because you don't know this one trick. Check this out.
Hello? Dude, get off my station. Oh, fuck. Excuse me. How you guys doing? So, we see what's going on now. We see what's going on. And now, we see that figure, Gavin Newsom said that he did not authorize the National Guard or the Marines, and Trump is overstepping. And Trump said they have the receipt. They have the receipt saying that they told Gavin Newsom that they're coming in, but Gavin Newsom said that I'm the governor. The state law says that the Fed will have to wait for the governor to ask for the federal to come in, to come into town. So that's the dispute that's going on right now. Hey, you guys like and share. I saw a lot of you guys came in to support me. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's what's going on right now. And I'm over here trying to fix this speaker. Yeah. So we're just looking at the sky right now. That's crazy. Let's go over here. No volume. Shit. Let's put on some volume. Okay, so we see a car moving in right there. And basically, nothing's happening. Ah, okay. We got a bus coming in. Oh, almost a car accident right there. Whoa, what happened? What's this? What the hell is that? Oh, okay, helicopters. They're having no difficulties. So they're just zooming above. Wow, look at all
my
those
life
police
before
cars.
I came to Rise Up Kings was
So, whoa, why is it going black all the time? What's going on? So, it's a tough times, man. You know when martial law comes in, it's game over for everybody. So be careful. Get your whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on here? What happened? This is live. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. I'm trying to get a. That's what they said.
Charged with felony assault on our officers, including the use of fireworks and motorcycles to cause harm. These were deliberate attacks, that injured officers who were simply doing their job out there to protect the public.
Why is that?
Let's not forget our officers face
What's
uncertain and often dangerous situations every day, and their risk to their lives has been even greater over these last few days. I've watched Molotov cocktails and fireworks shot mortars being launched out of tubes at our officers. They're encountering routinely M-type fireworks and commercial-grade fireworks, which in the state of California are considered explosive. Our officers should never have to face targeted violence while standing on a line to protect others. I want to thank the district attorney for pursuing felony charges in these cases. It sends a strong and important message. If you assault a peace officer in this city or this county, you will be held accountable. Additionally, I'm also pleased that there are charges related to looting and vandalism, crimes that took advantage of the unrest to target businesses and city property. In one case, a retail store was burglarized and tens of thousands of dollars in merchandise was stolen. In another, graffiti was sprayed onto a historic public building while an accomplice stood watch.
I hate it when it does
These
that.
crimes don't advance any cause or further any message. What they do is harm to our communities, our small businesses, and our civic institutions. The LAPD will continue to investigate all incidents thoroughly and work with our partners in the DA's office to bring every offender to justice. We remain committed to protecting First Amendment rights, restoring peace, and holding criminals accountable. I want to thank our officers, our partners in this community for their resilience and cooperation throughout this event. Thank you.
And before we start with questions, I also want to thank the two members of my office that have worked around the clock to bring these charges. Alva Lynn, who's our head deputy of our charge evaluation division, and Deputy District Attorney Michael Blake of our Crimes Against Police Officers Division. Now we'll take questions. Yes.
Who are these Republicans? So they want to put a. I think this is the guy they want to put in charge. He's a Republican. I think this is him right here. This guy, he's a Republican. I believe so.
We're
Right,
still
Trump wants to do a transition.
Communication and coordination with the Army, who is in charge.
Trump wants to do a transition. He wants to take out the Democrats and place a Republic there because there is fraud. A lot of people voted for Republic. It's a Republican state, but it's controlled by Democrats.
Because one of their missions, from what has been described to us, is other than protecting
Wix, one platform, any website, unlimited creation.
So they're going to be going out together from our limited understanding thus far, and I think that's exactly what he's talking about.
I understand most of the people arrested are not facing the serious types of felonies that you're describing. They're probably going to be referred to the city attorney for less serious failures or whatever those allegations would be. In recent history in Southern California, hundreds of people have been arrested on those allegations.
Why's he always smiling?
And then the city has made the decision not to prosecute any of them. And I'm curious if you're going to take a different position or what your thoughts are about that as it relates to the people arrested in the last few days.
So you are correct that there are certain crimes committed, misdemeanor crimes committed here in Los Angeles City that would be the jurisdiction of the city attorney's office. I have spoken to the city attorney, Heidi Feldstein Soto. She takes these crimes very seriously. I don't want to speak for her ahead of time as to the types of charges she's going to bring on these various violations. And you're right, they can, even misdemeanors can span a spectrum from failure to disperse, from violations of curfew, onto even more serious violent actions or actions involving theft. So I can tell you, having spoken to Ms. Feldstein Soto, that she and her office will be taking these violations very seriously. I don't think we have a precedent that was set in prior protests. I will tell you from the district attorney's office, which didn't bring charges in connection with the prior protests, starting today, you've heard we are bringing these charges, felony charges. We consider the actions, particularly the actions against law enforcement, the actions against public safety, the actions defacing, as Chief McDonald said, historic buildings, extremely serious. In many ways, I've been a lifelong Angelino. I've been here over 60 years in this city and in this county. These people who want to go ahead and not protest and not engage in legitimate speech, but want to go ahead and commit crimes in our home, we're going to protect our home. We're going to make sure if someone wants to throw cinder blocks and our police officers, we're going to protect our police officers and hold those people accountable. They want to go ahead and write disgusting words all over our public buildings, we're going to go after them as well. They want to steal from our stores, we're going to hold them accountable for their actions. And that's the way I view it. That's the way the district attorney's office views it.
This is
if you
not
want to come
fair.
into our county, into
Even
our
though,
home, and commit crimes.
even though I don't support the Dems, I'm like, this is wrong, because these people came here thinking that look at they painted them on the wall. They're on the wall. This is a Mexican painting right here on the wall, as we see behind us. This is a Hispanic painting right here. All of downtown LA is Hispanic painting. They even erased the black history and put Hispanic in it before it. If you go to the court, downtown LA, it's telling the story of Mexico, South America. Trump knows what's going on. A lot of people don't know that there's a war going on with the Mexican cartel because they took over California. Because when Gavin Newsom said black people need to go ask Mexican cartel if they could get reparations, that meant that California has been taken over. Yeah.
Talk to you about it. It's because we're focused on arresting those individuals involved and bringing the best cases forward. Some of them may be to the district attorney, but highly likely to the U.S. attorney, where we're working with some of our federal partners to look at that angle of exactly what you're asking for.
Then a quick follow-up to the chief, and this is coming from somebody who's been here for several days and have watched how your officers have conducted themselves and have used less lethal rounds, from my perspective, only after being agitated by other people throwing things. However, there is a video now circulating online of less lethal methods being used on a woman, not quite a protester, standing very close to officers, being fired at with less lethal methods. Also a caveat that we do see these police officers give her multiple warnings. I'm wondering if you could comment on the use of those methods at such a close distance as someone that did not seem to be posing much of a threat?
Yeah, I can't speak to that individual case because I'm not aware of what the follow-up was. But each one of these we see, it generates an investigative follow-up. We will look into it thoroughly and then, look for all the video we possibly can out there, body-worn video on the officers and then a video from the environment there and put together as best we can what the circumstances were.
Perhaps then you could speak to people out there who may not understand that a warning's a warning, or officers wouldn't take that step.
Yeah, thank you for that. The bottom line is once we give a dispersal order, it's because things have gotten out of hand and we're trying to restore order, and you are ordered to leave that area, and the officers are going to clear that area. And some of the tactics used involve less lethal munitions, and certainly while they're way more accurate than they were in years past, certainly there's also times where they potentially hit a target that was not the intended target. So if you're in the environment and you're told to leave, please leave, because for your own safety and the safety of everyone around you.
Do you know what's going on in Royal Heights? I just saw a video when I was leaving my office to get over here. There was a white car and then two silver cars. I think it was an SUV and a silver truck. Came up, caught off the white car, and two people hopped out. I mean, they looked, like they were, I couldn't tell if they were feds or local officers. And then they detained that driver. Any idea what's...
Yeah, I've heard about that too. I haven't been able to find out more about it at this time. I know that Hollenbeck units were dispatched to that, so once we free up here, we'll figure out what was going on out there more.
Chief, just to kind of follow up on that question, just trying to understand, does that mean that you guys have begun use of force reviews on some of these incidents?
Oh yeah, whenever anything happens of significance, we start looking at it right away, trying to capture all the video we can, any other evidence we can right away.
There's one particular question I wanted to ask you. There was an arrest of Dtla, and she's an aide to one of our council members. I was wondering if there was any information regarding that arrest, if there were any charges that were posted for her and her particular employee actor.
Yeah, no, I'll have to follow up with you to see what if there were charges filed or not on that one.
If the sheriff could just clarify what you had said earlier to the question about the National Guard now being given authorization. How would it work then, I suppose, and it sounded like from what you were saying, we're only really there to detain those that are causing harm to federal officers, but I don't know, how would a handoff work to local law enforcement if the National Guard was to detain, say, a protester?
Let me clarify that. What's been communicated to me thus far, and we are asking for more specific communication from the Army, which the National Guard is falling under them now, along with the Marines, is that they've expressed to us that they have their mission is split up into three areas. That it is to protect federal functions, to protect federal facilities, and to protect federal personnel. And as far as I know, and again, we are all in meetings trying to increase our communication and coordination with them, so we're still asking for specific clarification. My understanding at this point is that they do not have the powers to arrest or detain. So if they are out in the field, they may be there, but they're working in conjunction with federal authorities. It could be ICE, Border Patrol. There's a whole host of acronym federal agencies that they're working with. But again, not knowing that specific incident, that's where communication and coordination is critical.
Sheriff, do you know, are the Marines here? I've been hearing since Sunday they've been on their way. And what are Wednesday?
I would be guessing if I try to answer that. Again, I'm just going to leave it at this. We are doing everything we can. I know Chief McDonald and I and our staffs are doing everything we can to improve our communication with the Army, so we would know those specific questions. And they were just activated, I think, Sunday? So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And first of all, I just tell you, for I've never served in the military. I have nothing but respect for people in the military, whether they're soldiers in the National Guard or Marines. They are our soldiers. So we're doing our best to put them and ourselves, and primarily our community, in a position so that we succeed together moving forward. Because frankly, we're all in an extremely difficult situation right now that none of us have ever been involved in, including the military.
And will continue to follow the top headlines from around the country and around the world here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.
In the meantime, let's bring into the conversation now our colleague and friend there, national security analyst and expert and retired Marine intelligence officer, Hal Kemper. He joins me. Hal, thanks for being with us. I know you're traveling, but we had to get you on for a second night in a row here as we continue to look at these live images there in downtown Los Angeles. Hal, we have to acknowledge this. I'm sure you've acknowledged it. The Marines not on ground yet. What do you make of that?
Well, what I understand is they're just outside of Los Angeles. They're undergoing training in preparation in order to go into the city. I don't read too much into it, other than it's the planning process. You know, National Guard gets training in civil disturbance on a regular basis. It's something they do. Usually, they do it in state active duty status, working under the governor. In that regard, they are not held under posse comitatus, that federal law that says the military can't do law enforcement. In this case, they're federalized. Doesn't mean they didn't get the training in civil disturbance. Marines, on the other hand, this is an unusual training set, if you will. It's not that Marines have not been trained in civil disturbance. I know for a fact Marines have been trained in this many times, and they've been trained in for here in the U.S. and overseas. But it's just not part of the regular training curriculum. So what they did is they brought them in. I think part of it, too, is there's a lot of forces that have been brought in under this Task Force 51 to go into Los Angeles. And I'm seeing the normal sort of organizational issues of getting forces deployed to certain areas and set up and self-sustainable and all the other things that go with that. So I think there's kind of a deliberate process here of movement onward to wherever they got to go. And so they're staged right outside of LA, but they could come in rather quickly. One thing I would say is I haven't seen the protests spark up in such a way that there's an exigent need to put them in sooner. And I think that's something that has to be taken into consideration.
So this was posted about under an hour ago. That according to the LAPD, the Central Division, there are 3 separate demonstrations occurring at this hour, and they say to expect delays at some of these intersections and street corners here. You see there Temple and First Street, Temple and Aliso, and First Street from Main Street there. They say about 150 people on bicycles riding westbound. Haven't necessarily seen that throughout this. We've seen them on scooters and the like, but also LA County Sheriff saying this: to avoid protest area, that a demonstration is underway in downtown Los Angeles, saying to please avoid the area due to heavy traffic and potential delays, saying use alternate routes and stay updated via official sources. So, Hal, I think this is kind of a bare bones question here, if you can help us, because I've been having trouble with distinguishing who these law enforcement entities are with respect to their uniforms, what they wear, the badges on their shoulders, and the like here. So who are these? What jurisdiction are these individuals from?
I'm trying to make it out right now. I will tell you that LAPD is out there. LA County Sheriff's is out there. They are bringing in other jurisdictions under mutual aid out there as well. A lot of these other jurisdictions, and these might be, I'm taking a look here, it looks like those are National Guard.
The shield that they're holding says California National Guard.
Yeah, so they're National Guard, but there are, but some in the back are clearly not. They're probably a local police department. I would mention, this is part of an ongoing discussion that's been going back for 30 or 40 years, which is the militarization of law enforcement, where they have units that wear, what look like military uniforms. They wear helmets. They've got body armor, everything. And from a distance, many times it's very difficult to see whether they are actually military or law enforcement, particularly in this situation, because we actually have military in these areas. And I have heard it misreported at times that they thought there was military that was in direct contact or doing stuff with the protesters. In actuality, it was law enforcement that was dressed up in what appears to be, military or paramilitary uniforms that are part of their usually special enforcement or their SWAT type presence. So, that you saw right there was with the California National Guard. Those are California National Guard, albeit they are in federalized status. What I would point out that's interesting is the shields say California National Guard. Normally, when they're doing a mission like this, they would be in state status.
Okay.
And that's why they would distinguish the fact that they are California National Guard, kind of showing that state status, working for the governor, where they are not fall under posse comitatus rules against law enforcement. However, those are the only shields they got. So even though they got federalized, those are the shields they have.
So, Hal, I've seen photos, and maybe we can put some of them up on X, from Homeland Security, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, that the National Guard that was federalized, the California National Guard, has been used to protect federal employees, i.e. ICE agents, from carrying out raids. We've seen that. That's been documented in photographs. We also have seen the National Guard protect federal buildings, like in downtown Los Angeles. We've seen that. That's what we're seeing right now. Does the federalized National Guard have the power to detain protesters, Hal?
Yes, they do. That's one of those things. Posse comitatus is a really small body of law. It's like one very small paragraph, a couple of key sentences. What they can't do is they can't arrest the protesters. However, and this has happened many, many times, they're out there doing security stuff. Protesters get in their face. They pose a threat, whatever. What can they do? Well, obviously they can respond with force. But the other thing they can do is they can detain. Now, they can't arrest, and they need to move them into law enforcement custody as quickly as possible whenever they do that. I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule on how long they can detain them. I don't recall there being anything statutorily that says it has to be X number of minutes or hours or whatever. But they can detain them. They just can't do anything.
It's a coup. It's a coup. We got to be a coup. This is a soft coup.
Federal troops
This is a soft coup using all the illegal activities that has been done by the Democratic Party. Yeah, so this is a soft coup. The Republicans are taking over California. That's just how it's going down. And Orange County is right there waiting to roll in and take over. Because Orange County and Los Angeles, they go at it, you know, because Orange County is a Republican and Los Angeles is Democratic. So, you know, they be going at it. So they're happy that it's, and I bet you Orange County is like, you want us to go up in there? Got your back, Trump. You know, I know at Long Beach also. Long Beach is also a republic. That's why you never hear about it, because Long Beach is a republic also. So, you know, what's going on? This is what's going on down here. The protesters are not giving up. Their parents are being taken away from them. They don't know what to do, where to go, or what to say. The next level for them is to send them to Iran. They're going to be fighting against the Iran for the Persians. To retake, not the good ones, the ones that want Iran back. They're going to take these young youths and say, hey, if you want to be citizens and now go back, you got to serve in the war.
It indicates he's very clearly considering that at some point.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done that.
All right, Al, let's talk about the curfew in place. It'll be in place now tonight for a second night starting at 8 p.m. local time. Do curfews work? I know you've been around crowd control, and so you are a really good resource with respect to that. When it went into effect last night, there was some type of grace period, but it eventually seemingly worked here. Will it work a second night? Do curfews work? That's my question.
Curfews tend to work. In fact, curfews are, we use them all over the world. We had curfews. When we went to Iraq, there were curfews. Curfews work. And what curfews really do is they say they get any potential threat, if you will, off the streets. Or if they are on the streets during a curfew, then they've clearly identified themselves as someone who has first decided to violate the curfew. Does that mean they're an active threat? Well, it does mean that they can be detained, that they can be stopped, and there are certain, conditions that you have that you wouldn't have if it was just a regular day and people were out on the streets. So you're saying, look, you cannot be in this area at this period of time. And if somebody is in that area, it is understood that they will be taken into custody or detained or something like that. Okay. So it kind of clears action, if you will. It really, it helps law enforcement across the board basically control an area in a way that they couldn't control it if there wasn't a curfew in place.
So if the clock strikes 8:01 in Los Angeles tonight, and there are protesters still out there liable to be arrested, to be detained, that's what you're saying?
They could be. They could be. I'm sure they just go up and they say, hey, it's 8:01, you need to get out of here. And sometimes, honestly, the protesters are out there and, they're kind of making a statement and stuff, but they don't all want to go to jail. They don't all want to get detained. I mean, there are some that want to make a statement and get arrested and things like that. But for the most part, usually, depending on the tempo of what's going on and the fervor of the crowd, that usually around that transition period, they'll move out there. We certainly saw this in previous protests where it got to the time where they were supposed to get off the streets, and it was clearly communicated to them, hey, it's time to go, you got to clear this area.
Okay.
And normally they will, not always, but I will say this, if they start wantonly violating their curfew, if they are out there doing vandalism and violence and stuff after the curfew, well, that's a dangerous shift in the situation. And honestly, that's something that President Trump might cite in his decision-making process.
I want to put up this post by our colleague at Fox 11, reporter Matthew Seedorf, saying this: more than 220 people were arrested in downtown Los Angeles Tuesday. That's yesterday. This includes a person accused of pointing a laser at an LAPD helicopter, one assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, and 3 people illegally in possession of firearms. Hal, what do you make of that? 3 people who were detained, who were arrested, they had guns on them during this protest. How does that happen?
All 3 of the things that they pointed out there are very serious. Obviously, the firearms jumps out, but I would say assault with a deadly weapon. Look, a brick can be a very deadly weapon. A metal pole can be a deadly weapon. Incredible mayhem can be caused by that. But I want to point out one that doesn't get enough attention. That laser at a helicopter, that right there is a felony. If they laze a helicopter, they can dazzle, which means blind or temporarily blind the pilots in a helicopter. You can imagine the potential hazard that poses if the pilots of the helicopter can't see when they're flying in an urban area with tall buildings trying to do stuff. That is a very serious crime, and so all 3 of those things are very serious crimes, and hopefully putting that out there will quell that kind of stuff. But it also says another thing too. They're looking actively, and they should be. They're looking actively to find out if anybody in the crowd is carrying a firearm, and it's good that they were able to do that.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will deter anyone else from doing something really as dangerous and just plainly stupid as going to a protest with a firearm.
So, Hal, I'm not entirely sure if this next question is the right question to ask you, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's becoming a frequent topic of conversation, especially on Capitol Hill, from Republican lawmakers especially, whether or not these protests are so organized that they are paid for by certain activist groups here. In what you have seen with regard to the formulation of the protests, do you think they're decentralized or centralized? Is there a top leadership chart in the organization all the way on down? Or no, is it more organic than what we're seeing? What say you on that question?
That's actually a very good question, and I understand the FBI is actually actively investigating that to find that out. I'm going to say one thing about protests, and we've seen this. We saw this going back some years back with Antifa, for example, would be out there protesting, and it would look like a spontaneous protest. But when you start looking at various different protests, you start to see the same individuals show up in different locations, and it looked like they were doing things like command and control. So there are those out there who are, dare I say, professional protesters, in some cases professional rioters, if you will. They go in there and they take advantage of these situations. I have no doubt there are some on the ground here who really don't have a strong feeling one way or another about the topic du jour, but they see it as an opportunity to protest. And in the past, we have found a lot of control between them, which doesn't have to be.
Yeah, when I was down there in downtown LA, I was in downtown LA again recording. Man, it gets, those police, man, they're stepping on the gas. They're just going so fast and they're moving. A lot of them were wearing different kind of uniform. They were wearing this kind of blue uniform with orange logos on it. They were acting as highway patrol. I know that they pick like 10 men from each department, each city to come down to downtown LA, the LA department. Now I know that they're going to have a confrontation with the Marines. I don't know when, I don't know how, but there's going to be some internal fighting. You know, this reminds me of a movie I watched with Rome, when another district had to bring in guards to remove the person that had in charge over there, the Secretary of State over there, because they were doing wrong. So they had to send in there's like a little bit of civil war, but they had just walked in and arrested him though. But this reminds me of it. Gavin Newsom, just, you know. But the stuff that, oh shit, what's going on here? They're running away. Oh man, it must be getting hectic down there. Something's going on. Oh man, these people are saying curfew time. Curfew, curfew. What are you doing out? Hey sir, sir. Oh, that's the security. That's the federal building? Okay.
There's really no cap on that. And if you want to go back to World War II, the National Guard troops got federalized, and they stayed there until the war was over, plus 6 months. So there's a long time you can do this. But really the cap, the ticking clock in the background,
they're running to now,
is one is a law, as we mentioned on the, as we talked about, it's called the U.S. Economy Act. It's one that when I was doing this, when I was coordinating military support of civil authorities in all its various incarnations, two things you looked at. One is you can't violate posse comitatus if they're in federal status. The other was the Economy Act, which basically says that you've got to look for the most economical source of goods and services. Why? Because the military is extremely expensive. And Congress back in the early 30s didn't want various agencies always going to the military to do stuff because it's really expensive, very capable, but really expensive. So there's some things that have to happen. The Secretary of Defense and probably the other secretaries involved, the supporting and supported secretaries, I should say, or cabinet members, have to sign off on a waiver to allow this presence to continue to allow the use of military forces for this particular mission. That's a de rigueur administrative step they have to take.
Okay.
But at some point there, Congress will look at it. The courts might look at it and say, did you really need federal troops out there doing this? Could you have found another way to do this? So there is overview. So that's kind of the ticking clock, but there isn't like you got to get them out there in 2 weeks or you got to get them out in 30 days. There's nothing like that.
Okay, there does seem to be an as long as it takes quality to some of the comments coming from Secretary Hegseth and even President Trump, so that's why I asked that question. Hal Kemper, as always, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's quiet today, though. It looks like it's quiet. Nothing's going on. I think the companies were complaining because a couple of stores got hit, 26 stores. So I think they got mad at the police department. So they sent in more police officers because the last thing they want is Gavin Newsom, Trump bringing in the Marines. So they're like, we got this contained. We don't need no Marines. We don't need no National Guards. And we got everything controlled. So they've been pulling police from any other department to come down there and secure the street. And they want to show that because if those Marines come in, it's martial law and it's game over. So they're like trying to show we got this. Gavin Newsom was shouting at them. You're like, what the fuck's going on? That's sci-hi. You guys gotta keep that stuff together. We can't afford this. We don't want Trump up in California. He gave them, he was all up on them. Now they gotta act right. So they're serious right now. Gavin Newsom had a talk with them.
Mr. Holman, describe the state of play right now in Los Angeles.
Right now, it's calmed down, but last night was bad. It seems that the activity really picks up at nighttime, thank God President Trump did deploy the National Guard to help protect the buildings and help protect our officers. But it's chaos. I mean, a lot of the protesters are peaceful. Some of the protesters are not. Some of the protesters quickly become criminals when they burn down cars, they damage government property, and they attack law enforcement. They're criminals, and I just wish, we all support the First Amendment. They can certainly protest and shout and cover their signs about they don't like what ICE does, but to cross that line on committing criminal activity, it's beyond the pale, and it needs to stop. And that's why President Trump sent the National Guard there to help bring order and at least protect property and protect life.
As you know, Mr. Holman, Governor Newsom has sued the Trump administration, asking a federal court to rule on the National Guard and the Marines being used, essentially saying they should only be used to protect federal property. If a judge rules in California's favor, what will you say to that?
I think it's wrong. I think President Trump's doing the right thing. Governor Newsom's late to the game. I mean, I was on the ground. I was there since last Wednesday. I was there to kick off a major operation. And Friday night, we got thousands of people, 1,000 people surrounding the federal building. We had, our agents were there, and people we arrested over that day were there, put them at great risk and did damage to the building. We had several officers hurt. He took several days for him to get there. President Trump didn't hesitate.
Have these protests stopped or slowed any single ICE raid? And if they've even stopped a single one, have they been successful?
Police. God damn, they just turned that into their station.
No, they're making it more difficult. No, we're going ahead. We're making record numbers.
They hit a Rolex building. A Rolex building got hit.
You acknowledge they're making it more difficult? I want to make sure I understood you there. They are making these ICE raids more difficult to demonstrators?
No, they're making it more dangerous. But they make it more dangerous about our officers with the backing of other federal agencies. It's just not ICE out there anymore. We got Dtla, FBI, we got U.S. Marshals, we got ATF. The government, President Trump bought the Hall of Government to do this operation. But I want to make it clear. We've been running the ICE operation in Los Angeles every single day during this protest, and we're arresting a lot of bad people in that city, and we're going to continue to doing it. They're not going to stop us. They're not going to slow us down.
Yeah, I want to put up a tweet for you. I'm going to send it over to you there in that studio. This is what Governor Newsom put on X, right? He put the photos you see there of Marines sleeping on top of each other. This is what he wrote in that post. You sent your troops here without fuel, food, water, or a place to sleep. Here they are being forced to sleep on the floor, piled on top of one another. What do you say to that, Mr. Holman?
Let's see, I'll take a few moments, go downtown LA and look at the damage that's been done by these radical protesters. I mean, President Trump's saving his city. President Trump's doing what he should have done. Gavin Newsom could have responded right away and try to quell this disturbance down there, but he supports sanctuary cities. He supports releasing criminal aliens to the streets every day.
President Trump has put on Truth Social, if they spit, we will hit. You've been in law enforcement for decades. Is that the right strategy when things are so tense?
ICE officers will defend themselves. Like I just mentioned, someone threw a Molotov cocktail at an officer. Now, in my situation, doing this for 4 decades, if that would have come close and that officer would have sustained, if that fuel would have dumped on and that Molotov cocktail would have lit that officer up, then he's responsible. I mean, he has all the authority in the world to respond with deadly force.
Mr. Holman, I understand
ICE officers are going to defend themselves.
A Molotov cocktail, that's a bomb. I get that. And nobody wants to be spit on either. I want to make sure you don't think that we're condoning that either. But I guess it's sort of the temperature check, right? When the president puts out something like that, doesn't it make things hotter?
Look, I think the men and women of ICE and the National Guard are well trained. You've seen the videos. These officers have been hurt. More officers have been hurt than protesters have been hurt. So these people are well trained. They know use of force, the paradigm of use of force. They know when they can take action, when they can't. They've had hundreds and hundreds of hours of training. I trust the men and women of law enforcement to use the proper use of force when needed.
So there's been reports that Stephen Miller has demanded 3,000 people should be deported a day, rounded up and deported a day, and that if not, it's going to lead to firings. Is that something you're going to be able to get to, a goal you'll be able to reach? And is that why you're now targeting day laborers as well?
Look, I agree with Stephen Miller that we need an increase in ICE operations. I've said from day one, I've been asked 1,000 times, am I happy with the numbers? I'm happy we have the most secure border in the history of this nation right now, the most secure border ever. I'm happy with that. I'm happy that ICE arrests have tripled the number of arrests under Joe Biden. But because what I just said, 4 years open border, millions of illegal aliens reach this country. Many are public safety threats. We have a big job to do. So yeah, we know when ICE arrests 1,000, that's good, but we should be arresting more because we got right now, as you and I are speaking, we got over 600,000 illegal aliens that we know of with criminal convictions walking the streets of this country. We got to arrest them quicker. We got to make this country safer quicker. Every illegal alien criminal we arrest makes it neighborhoods much safer. Again, which is why we need this budget passed to give ICE resources they need to take this operation, make it more efficient, and increase the numbers of people, criminal threats, national security threats that are going to be removed from this country. We need a budget to do that. I hope they do it, and I hope they do it fast.
Mr. Holman, anything happened over the last few days in Los Angeles that you regret or you wish you would have done differently?
No.
All right, we'll leave it there, Mr. Holman. We appreciate your time and your answers, and thanks for talking to us for such a long period of time. Thank you for watching.
Wow. Wow. That was yesterday. Okay, look like, wow, look at that. Look like they got the curfew going. This guy's just focused on one spot. We're gonna have to find another view. Okay. Taking the gold. Uh-oh. You see a little frog going on already.
You being lazy about cleaning your apartment. No, seriously. Home at Low will clean it for just $9. Home at Low washes and gotta do a better job instead of bad job. Causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last night we gave them a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you know, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming. And we don't want people looking at Los Angeles like it was, like it would have been. It would have been bad. Last night they had total control. If we didn't have the military in there, the National Guard, and then we also sent in some Marines, we had some bad people. We have people, they look in your face and they spit right in your face. They're animals. And these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They're agitators. They're paid. Do you think somebody walks up to a curb and starts hammering pieces out, has all the equipment necessary, and starts handing it out to people to use as a weapon? These are paid insurrectionists or agitators or troublemakers. You can call it whatever you want. And we ended it, and we have in custody some very bad people. Some very bad people.
Mr. President.
Did you see the guy throwing the rocks at the police cars as they went by and crushing their windows and endangering our police? We're not going to let that happen. Yeah.
Perfect. Mr. President, on those Marines, Governor Newsom has described them as political pawns. I'm curious for your reaction to that and what you see as the Marines' role and what are their rules of engagement?
All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. We have, Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You could speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control. When we got there, and you have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down for 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor, he's an incompetent person. That he was picked, well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. and we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it, but that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
The Marines is, a lot of people think, an escalatory step, though. These are guys who fight wars. Are you at all concerned that things could get out of hand with Marines?
When I see people throwing concrete into cars, when I see people, the kind of people that I saw on your network doing danger to the police and to the military and to the National Guard, no, it's okay. You know, you start running out of people when you have 2,000 people from a National Guard standpoint. We have a very big military, but the National Guard, they needed a little extra help, and we sent them a little, and we did a great job last night. We had, well, you had a lot of cars go up in smoke and flame and a lot of bad scenes, but it was pretty minor by comparison. This morning it's very calm. We'll see what happens later. But they know if they go there, they're not going to get anywhere because we have the National Guard. We backed it up with a number of Marines, yeah.
Mr. President, do you agree with Governor Abbott soon signing legislation to mandate?
As I went through my timeline, I realized that, I was sexualized, I think 5 years old. And I started to experiment with my friends.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to follow along on my colleague's chain of questioning. General Smith, I share her concerns and the concerns of the other members of this committee about the mobilization of the 700 Marines in response to the protests in Los Angeles. I am a Marine Corps family. My father, who lies at rest in Arlington, served in the United States Marine, only for a few years. He was an Army officer for the rest of the time, but that man was a Marine until the day he died.
And once a Marine, always a Marine, Senator.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. And now, even if this is technically legal, what the president is doing, under an expansive interpretation of Article 2 authorities, I believe it is incredibly unwise. I don't condone violence or property destruction, but using active duty Marines for domestic protest response sets a dangerous precedent. When citizens around the country, not just in California, see Marines on the streets of America, it risks damaging their trust and politicizing a force that must remain apolitical and mission focused. President Trump is asking Marines to be away from their families for a situation that the president himself said yesterday was, and I quote, this is what he said yesterday, simmering but not very much, end quote. Do you, General, have any concerns about the moral injury of Marines who are now being tasked to face Americans and deploy their community in an unprecedented way? And what are you doing to address those mental health concerns?
Senator, Marines will execute their lawful orders. I don't have any concerns that about their moral damage. They're executing lawful orders that they're trained to do. They're completely confident and they're capable of conducting protection of federal personnel and federal property.
I have no question on their ability to do their jobs. They're Marines after all. My concern is the psychological injury to Marines who are going to be told to turn on their fellow Americans. We know, and would you agree that there can be hidden injuries such as mental health injuries to Marines, whether they're at war? When you go to war, would you agree that there are hidden injuries that can happen, such as psychological injuries?
There are psychological injuries when one goes to war, yes, ma'am.
Are you concerned that there might be psychological served in the United States Marine?
And those initials took a lot more work to get in that service and everything. And one of these ones will be better. But I Large numbers. They have cleared the area. They have declared this an unlawful assembly and told people that they are trespassing on hotel property here. You can see they have formed a skirmish line right there on Greenleaf Avenue, and everybody appears to be obeying that skirmish line. They're across the street, still waving signs. About 50 to 75 people remaining here, and they are angry as you can imagine. It's a raucous scene out here in Whittier as we do not have confirmation that there are ICE agents at that hotel, but it is entirely possible as people on the ground are reporting vehicles around that building in that parking lot that do match the description of the ICE vehicles that have been seen around town making deportations in the area. So a really sensitive time here in Whittier, and this crowd does not appear to be going home anytime soon, Mark. Really? Okay, keep me posted. Let me know. Okay.
vessels, from cargo ships to small supply boats to cable repair ships, etc., to build surge production and maintenance capacity within the theater?
I do, Senator, and I also think there's opportunities to bring that work into the United States.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity for both. Mr. Secretary?
I concur with the Admiral. I don't have really much to add to what he said.
What currently prevents the Navy from developing or scaling foreign partnerships to build or maintain our auxiliary vessels, Mr. Secretary?
Senator, look, I think there are a couple of different issues we have to tackle when it comes to those, but I think it's, as I said in my testimony during confirmation, all options are on the table, and we do need to look at this, and we do need to look at both having foreign builders build some ships like this for us, and also obviously they're coming here and looking at investing in our base and bringing their expertise. So I think that would be very useful to us.
Or even partnering with American builders, but overseas in theater to be able to provide immediate repair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill, where he just faced some tough questions from California Congressman Pete Aguilar about the deployment of Marines and National Guard members to Los Angeles. Let's listen.
What's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in LA? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job. They're being attacked for doing their job, which is deporting illegal criminals. That should happen in any city, Minneapolis or Los Angeles. And if they're attacked, that's lawless, and President Trump believes in law and order. So he has every authority, and he has done mobilizing National Guard or active duty troops under U.S. code to protect federal agents in their job, which is exactly what we're doing. We're proud to do it. We're proud to do it.
10 U.S.C.
of the U.S. Code 12406 as a legal basis that the president used cites three examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know, you just read it yourself and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all three to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers, that's a problem.
Laws in the United States?
No, the governor of California is unable to execute the laws of the United States. The governor of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
Also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it on behalf of the citizens of Los Angeles, on behalf of our ICE agents, and on behalf of our country.
We've also...
CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand is back with us here in the Situation Room. Natasha, he also addressed how long National Guard troops will be in Los Angeles and reports about them sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, well, so Secretary Hexet said that he expects the National Guard troops to be there for 60 days. So they're not going to be leaving anytime soon, according to the Secretary, because he says they need to stay there to show the protesters and the rioters that there is kind of a large military force there that is prepared to respond if they continue their protests. He also addressed, as you said, these photos that we have seen circulating that were posted, including by the California Governor Gavin Newsom, of these National Guard troops sleeping on the ground, sleeping on top of each other. He said that the troops are being very well taken care of. They have enough food, water. They also have shelter. Look, those photos that we have seen just really speak to the how fast these troops were deployed. A lot of the kind of logistics of this are still being worked out, and so you're going to see photos like this, just like you saw back when the National Guard responded to the January 6th insurrection, of them sleeping on floors, kind of catching naps where they can. What I'm told is that they do have a place to sleep, but obviously this is a very, very large contingent that is being deployed to the Los Angeles area, and they're now having to scramble to catch up and figure out where they're going to be located for an extended period of time. And we should also note that he did reveal, or I should say the comptroller who's testifying next to him revealed the cost of this deployment. She said that it's, right now the estimate is that it's going to be about $134 million for the Marines as well as the National Guard troops for this deployment. All right, thanks so much, Wolf. Let's go to CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton. Actually, I want to pick up with what they were just talking about, how unusual it is for a DoD secretary to be so political in this way. It may not be for Hexet, but in terms of the role, how unusual is that? And what else is your reaction to the comments he's made so far?
Yeah, so Pamela, the fact that he is so politically engaged is very different from previous secretaries of defense. You have a tradition of people like George Marshall, former five-star general who became Secretary of Defense, as well as Secretary of State, but he was notoriously apolitical as much as he possibly could be. The other thing that you can note with this is that the role of the military itself is kind of reflective of how the Secretary of Defense answers questions like this in front of Congress. And the military tries very hard to be as apolitical as possible. And in this particular situation with Hexet as Secretary of Defense, there is a risk that a lot of his political movements, his political assertions, they have to be careful that they don't become policy, because that could be a major change for the military, and that could have an adverse impact on its ability to remain apolitical.
All right, I want to go to something else here, and that is this tweeted this morning by California Governor Gavin Newsom. As you see, it shows the National Guard troops sleeping on the floor. It reads, quote, from the governor, "You sent your troops without fuel, food, water, or a place to sleep. If anyone is treating our troops disrespectfully, it is you, Donald Trump," end quote. What is your takeaway from this?
So when you look at a picture like this, one of the first things that comes to mind is that the military is made up of
a lot of hurry up and wait, as we call it in the military. In other words, you hurry up to get deployed somewhere, you get to that point, or you wait to get your transportation to that particular area, and you have to wait for it to happen. So it's not unusual for there to be a scene like this where the military is waiting. The soldiers will sleep wherever they possibly can. That's part of the technique of staying alert when they need to actually be on point. But you have situations where there's 20 hours of sheer boredom punctuated by about 2 minutes of absolute adrenaline pumping excitement. There are situations like that, and the military has to be able to, in essence, turn very quickly to deal with things. But this is not an unusual situation, even if the deployment was let's say, very well planned and coordinated with the state, you would still see scenes like that.
No matter who's president.
No matter who's president.
All right, Colonel Cedric Layton, thank you so much. I want to start with kind of a big picture of this situation. And we've been doing a lot of the policy, and we're going to get to that with you, Priscilla, don't worry. But because this is a political show, I do want to start with that. And our friend Ron Brownstein, who happens to live in Los Angeles, wrote the following.
Everything you're likely doing right now to get high-ticket clients online is wrong, and I'm going to teach you how to get traffic, build the right funnel, and generate clients for your industry right now. The first thing, and most people get this wrong, is they jump straight to driving traffic, and they forget about what I call getting your house in order. You first have to work on you. You have to work on your offers and make sure you're selling the right offers to the right people. You've got to work on your brand, and then you've got to have an operation that can actually scale. You're not building on a sandy foundation. Then that leads to traffic. When you're ready for traffic, we can either buy it, we can build it, or we can borrow it. Buy it is paid ads, build it is organic, and borrow it is finding people with the audience that you already have and getting in front of them. Podcasts, speaking on other people's stages, so on and so forth. You need a combination of all three of these right now to win and succeed online. We point all of that traffic into our conversion vehicle. This thing here is so important that we've got this vehicle right, because this is where we provide value up front to these people before we ever ask them for the sale. Most people disregard this part or don't do it right, and you're wondering why prospects aren't becoming clients. And then we move to sales. And this is where you've got to utilize a sales script that I call the push and the pull. And if you do this style of sales, you can absolutely win and start generating some high-ticket clients out the other end. Now, there's some other pieces that we do down here. There's more than I can explain right now. There's nurture sequences, there's email follow-up, there's the different things you do on social media to retarget these people, and there's certain ways that you deliver to your clients to increase the lifetime value. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, firstly, because that model, although of course we need more time to explain it, has generated me 35 million. It's generated my clients a reported 122 million. And I have an event coming up real soon called AdCon Online that's going to break this down. In fact, over 3 days, there's a theme, and it's this. I call it my momentum framework. It's how you can get your house in order, work on your offers, your brand, and your operation. We master traffic in these three areas. We get conversion vehicles sorted, sales, and we get clients out the other end. And I brought together some incredible speakers. I put them on a stage in London, and we blew our audience away. And we've had so many requests to bring that event to a virtual stage, and for one time only, we're doing just that. It's called AdCon Online. All the details are on the next page. You don't want to miss it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and the content you're going to get is insane. Click the link, come check out the event. It's happening one time. Don't miss it. See you on the next page.
Hey there, Mark. A high-speed pursuit started on the freeway. We believe California Highway Patrol tried to pull over this car speeding down the 105 freeway, eventually down to the 405, and now we find ourselves in Hawthorne, northbound on Crenshaw Boulevard, at a high rate of speed, blowing through red lights, and at times really making some aggressive moves. At one point, there was a report he rammed into that primary CHP vehicle right there in the lead of the pack there on a side street, on a surface street, which is really going to put the pressure on him as they try to get him off the road. Now, he was westbound on 190th at one point, heading towards Redondo Beach. He's done a loop through the South Bay now, as he now makes a right turn.
This is part of the plan,
off of Crenshaw. This might be 100
intentional and
120, it
organized.
looks
From
like,
the emergency
and he is going
declarations
about
on
70 to
his
80 miles per
prayer
hour
programs to
down
emergency
120.
declarations
And you
in
can see a
blue
good pack of
cities like this.
CHP
He is
cruisers
flexing
really
his
able to
presidential authority.
maintain
and
a
quite
visual
frankly,
here.
I'm
But he's
told
just
by
kind of
people
making
who
these
are
turns up as he goes along.
what he's seeing,
Wild
enjoying this
turns at
spectacle.
that, and again, breaking
So we
every
shall
rule
see
of the road,
where
desperate
it goes
to get away from these
other
officers.
Democratic governors are watching this
I just turned northbound on Dennis.
some trepidation as the summer begins. We're just 5 years on from a George Floyd protest that rightly went across the country here. So we shall see where this goes from here. But the emergency, I'm just always struck by our colleagues on the ground in Los Angeles, just describing how small of an area we are talking about here. And I think that cannot be said enough.
It reminds me of, you'll probably know this name, none of you probably will, but Michael Deaver, who was kind of the comms guru for Ronald Reagan, who, in the early days of trying to manipulate imagery on TV, understood that very well and sort of famously told, I think it was Leslie Stahl, who thought she was calling out things while playing the video of what Reagan was doing. He called to thank her because nobody was maybe paying attention as much to what she was saying as what they were seeing, which is the whole strategy here of what President Trump is doing. Well, in many ways, this has shifted from immigration to law and order. So from one of his top issues to yet another top issue. In the early days of this, there were immigration advocates and activists who were in front of this federal building who were protesting immigration and customs enforcement, detaining people as they came in for their check-ins and their hearings. And then it sort of snowballed from there, in addition to the other worksite enforcement that was happening around the city. And now to what you were describing, that small area, and what Stephanie was describing, the lawlessness that can happen in the overnight hours. But something, Dana, that I have been talking to my sources about, as they have continued, and others, like Homeland Security officials and Pentagon officials, have continued to brief the White House over the course of each of these days, is they continuously tell me that Stephen Miller, top aide to the president, has made it very clear to everybody involved in this response, they are not backing down from Los Angeles. They have no intention of pulling back. They feel like they have to win this, and win this with a show of force. So that has been the message that everyone on the ground, and that my sources are telling me, is being sent to officials across the government, and in this fight of both immigration and law and order coming together.
The truth is that a lot of mushroom products out there contain mostly mycelium, and that's the stuff that grows below the soil. And what you really want is the stuff that grows above the soil, which are fruiting bodies. There's a huge difference between functional mushrooms, which have medicinal qualities and compounds, and supermarket mushrooms, which are just for culinary use or for eating. Functional mushrooms are really very specific in the sense that they have huge functional compounds that have medicinal qualities. I really think that Dtla is the culmination of best of everything in every category that I can think of. It combines exquisite quality cacao powder from the Peruvian Andes that has a 30% cacao butter, the absolute highest quality functional mushrooms, reishi, chaga, lion's mane, cordyceps, using only fruiting bodies, 2 fermented pu'er teas that have pre- and probiotic compounds. And really, the combination of all these things has created this spectacular formula that not only tastes amazing, like a craft coffee or an artisanal chocolate, it's incredibly practical as a coffee replacement, as a new morning ritual.
guy, looks like that's it. Looks like it's quiet today. Looks like LAPD spoke to some people. We got to keep the Marines out, so everybody fell in line. That's what I think happened. All right, you guys, thanks for coming by. Subscribe. I know that a couple of you guys came over to my station. Subscribe, please.